Good morning, everybody. I hope that this finds you well and that your families are nice and healthy. Feels a little crazy right now. These are weird times. It seems like that we're living through. Very interesting to be able to say that we will live through a pandemic. Anyway, I know you've got lots of things on your mind, lots of questions about, the course and how we're going to proceed forward. And so I'll just be honest with you and let you know that I'm not really sure. I'm trying a whole bunch of online different tools. So this is one tool to do a PowerPoint presentation and have you just, watch the PowerPoint presentation in the same way that, I would do it in the classroom. It feels a little strange to not actually be seeing your faces. I miss you. I miss that part. That's one of the parts I really enjoy about teaching. So online education has never been a real draw for me because I like to interact with you when I'm teaching. So I'm also looking at the possibility of doing Zoom meetings, which would entail us basically, I would send out a Zoom meeting request to you. You would click on that and that would link us in so that, through video we could actually see each other and it would be more personal, I think, that way. However, as you can imagine, there's lots of people requesting Zoom accounts right now, and I have one. I'm just not exactly sure how to go about doing that. But if I am to do that, then know that I would tape those conversations, tape those lectures, so that you would be able to go on at your own convenience and be able to watch and listen to them when it really worked for your schedule. That's the one thing that I do like about this format, is that now you don't necessarily have to be ready to go at 11:55 if your life has become more busy. Perhaps you're helping with some daycare or helping around the house or with your family or whatever. Maybe that's not a convenient time for you. So then I like the idea that you being able to just check in at any time to get the information. And of course, there's a lot of concern about the fact that we will not be meeting for labs. So I guess our lab time is pretty much over, which is unfortunate because there's really a lot of things that I wanted to cover with you in lab that are kind of interesting and fun experiments to do. But I'm working on stuff that I think will help you. So anyway, hang in there. Know that I'm here to help you. You can email me anytime. So I'm hoping that your enthusiasm for the class remains high, and know that we will get through this together. It is strange times, but we're human and we're resilient, and that's one thing about our species, is that we're incredibly resilient. And so I feel confident we'll get through this, and hopefully I'll get to see you next semester, just as you're walking through the halls and you're waving at me and saying hi. So anyway, what I'm going to do is a lecture through basically chapter 4. I have posted a chapter review sheet for you. Please download that, print it out, use that as you're studying through chapter 4. I think it's a pretty good guide for you. And I've also, in this module, you'll see that there are some links to some videos. So check those out. One is on photosynthesis. I think it's pretty good. It's kind of a summary of what we should know about photosynthesis and the colors of light and all of that. And then the other one I put in is on cellular respiration. It's a little more detailed than what we're going to need to go through, but for those of you who like the detail and want to actually, understand the detail, because that helps you understand the bigger picture, then I've included that on the video links. If there's anything else that you can think of that is missing, or if this is not quite working, please shoot me an email, and we'll get working on that right away. Okay, so we are in chapter 4, and so let's continue to move through chapter 4. You can pause at any time, take notes. That's one of the nice things about this feature. Okay, so here we move on. Here are the kinds of topics that we're going to cover today. So it's not all of chapter 4. You'll see at the end of chapter 4 covers fermentation, and I have not addressed that here today. So we'll address that the next time. So we've already covered this idea of what is energy, how does energy flow. Then we'll get into photosynthesis, which is where we kind of left off on about 4.3, where sunlight is used to produce sugar. We're going to walk through the 2 phases of photosynthesis. So it's broken up into 2 different phases. That which is called the light reactions, that which is called the Calvin cycle. So those are the 2 phases of photosynthesis that we'll be covering. And then we'll go through cellular respiration. And again, these are pretty technical subjects, and the technicality is really difficult to probably grab onto without being able to ask questions. So please feel free to shoot me some questions. And I'm thinking that we'll have a discussion page at some point. Maybe next week I'll start including a discussion so that we can communicate with each other, you guys can communicate with each other, and just sort of shoot some ideas and how this stuff is making sense. Okay, the other thing is that on this format of doing these presentations, there's a 15-minute time limit for a video, and so know that the videos are going to be broken up. I'm going to try to label them as the first video, second, third, so that way you know how to run through them. Alright, so with that said, notice that in the module there is also a page there that has the learning objectives. So keep in mind that's right in line with those objectives that were in your lab book, or the book that you purchased from the bookstore that we were using to study for tests. So I'm still keeping the framework all based around that. Okay? Timing might be slightly different. If some objectives fall off because they're just impossible for us to do because they were based on labs, I will let you know. Alright, but I did include an objective list for you in this module so you know which ones we're covering today. Alright, so we're looking at energy, and we've talked about energy, and so remember that energy is defined as the capacity to be able to do work or to make change. So it's really about doing something against an opposing force. So gravity, of course, is a force that is holding you down onto this, our mothership here. And so, as you can see with this weight trainer here, to lift that weight up against the opposing force of gravity, that is the definition of work. Okay, so it is to do work or cause change. We went through this notion that there are laws associated with thermodynamics. And one is that energy is not created or destroyed, it only changes form. And when we were trying to understand that, I showed you the process of sunlight and sunlight's ability to be our energy source, and it really gets captured by plants. So it's energy in the form of wave patterns. It gets captured by plants. Plants turn it into a chemical form of energy called sugar. you and I take that chemical form of energy and we turn it into a cellular form of energy called ATP. So again, it's not created or destroyed, it only changes form. And so throughout this chapter, what we would be concentrating on is looking at all of those various forms. Okay, so here's the chemical equation for photosynthesis. So this goes along with, what I was just saying about solar energy is being converted into chemical energy. So the energy that was in the form of waves, wavelengths coming off of the sun, are now stored in the form of chemical bonds. And those chemical bonds are in the form of sugar. Okay, as far as cells go, our energy that we use is in the form of a molecule called ATP. On your homework sheet or on the reading guide, the reading review sheet that I have, I've asked you to recreate this image of ATP being broken down to ATP, start again. I've asked you on your review sheet to recreate this image of ATP being broken down into ADP plus phosphate. Remember, chemical bonds are energy, and in order to create energy, in order to create ATP, energy must come in. So if you want to create a chemical bond, energy must be added to the system. And when you break chemical bonds, energy is released. And that's what this diagram is showing you. This is the molecule here, ATP, that we use to do all of the work inside our cells. So lucky for you and I, there is only one molecule that we have to worry about in regards to cellular energy, and it is this one right here, ATP. So basically, cellular respiration is going to be, which is the second part of the chapter, is about how do you and I restore ATP in our cells. You're already familiar with the idea that we do a lot of work, our cells do a lot of work, we're transporting materials in and out across that plasma membrane, and some of those processes are active transport, and what we meant by active transport is that it requires energy. There's where the ATP comes into play. When ATP bonds onto one of those transport proteins, the terminal phosphate group is broken off. And when that chemical bond is broken, energy is released. That energy is the energy that is used to then move the molecules against the concentration gradient. So working against an opposing force, the whole definition of work. Okay, and we talked about entropy as well the last time we were together, in saying that everything is moving towards a state of disorder. That's the natural way of the universe, is to move towards a state of disorder. So the natural form, even if we go back into this equation right here, this slide here, if you look at ATP, it's highly organized. See, those three phosphate groups are in a very specific orientation on this molecule. When, however, the energy has been used and that chemical bond has been broken, this is an increase in disorder or an increase in entropy, because now this phosphate is free to move around, and it no longer is connected to the ADP molecule. So the ADP plus a free phosphate has more disorder than the ATP molecule has. So everything is moving towards a state of disorder. And the disorder within a system is called entropy. So I'm just about out of time on this video, so I'm going to pick up the picture from right here. on the next video. And this is just showing us the difference between energy flow, that it moves from potential to kinetic